In this video, I'll get the color and intensity of my lights adjusted in my station. I'll start out by making a camera, so I can quickly switch into a camera view inside. I'll press L for left view, and Z to zoom extents. I'll click on the Create tab on the command panel and on the Camera button and choose Free Camera. I'll click once in the scene to make a camera, and right-click to stop creating. I'll press T for top view, and there's my camera. This will work pretty well. There's a camera, and I can adjust the lens if needed, maybe a 28mm lens to start. I'll press C for camera, and there I am in the space. Now when I'm adjusting my lights, I can press C for camera and get back to this view versus navigating through a perspective. Now keep in mind, we are looking out the blank door here that would lead to the lobby, but in this case we're only going to look the other way, but I can move my camera around if needed. Now I'll adjust the lights. At the moment, if I click on the Render Setup, I have Mental Ray active. If you don't see Mental Ray active, you can click on the Common tab, go down underneath Common Parameters, and to the Assign Renderer rollout. In here, click on Choose Renderer and choose NVIDIA Mental Ray. With Mental Ray active, I'll make sure under Indirect Illumination that Final Gather is on. At the moment, this is going to be a small render, but I'll click Render and see what it looks like to get a base idea of how my lights are behaving. What we're seeing here is the final gather. That is the bouncing and regathering of indirect light in the scene, producing that crystalline look, which then resolves into the lit scene. We can see in here that my scene is, well, scorchingly bright. Additionally, I forgot to color the exterior walls, which are blue outside. I can hit Escape to cancel a render, but we need to know at least how we're starting out so we can adjust. First, I'll take care of that blue exterior wall, selecting it, and then pressing M for Materials and assigning my wall paint. Now to adjust the lights. Actually, what I need to do first is adjust the exposure. I'll press 8 for the Environment dialog and scroll down to the Mental Ray Exposure Control. What this says for us is either we can use an exposure value, of which you can actually find tables online. These dictate shutter speed, aperture, and ISO, or film speed, even in a digital camera, the sensitivity to light. What I'll do though to start out is drop down under Presets and choose Physically Based Lighting, Indoor, Daylight. I have daylight going, but it's very weak at the moment, and I am using interior lights. Alternately, I can choose instead Indoor Nighttime, and this will pull that exposure value back down. Now it was set at 2 originally, so I'm going to bring this up. I'll try in here, maybe 6, and see how another render looks. This is a little better. Now that I'm seeing the lights correctly, I can start to adjust their color and intensity, and I can already see the colors in my space coming out nicely. One of the things to do in lighting, assuming you're using bounce light like we are, is to learn to read the final gather, looking at the values in here before the image is fully resolved. Now when I'm lighting, I'll look at color and intensity before shadow. Shadow comes later and can be very time intensive, so we want to get the general values right while they're still cheap to render. I'll cancel this by pressing Escape, and now I'll adjust some lights. What I'll do then is again use this filter up at the top, dropping down under All in my selection filter and choosing Lights. And first, I'll select one of the lights in the chandelier. Remember, these are all instanced. The light type is in bold, Free Light, and the Make Unique button is available, letting us know it's instanced. What I'll do first is scroll down and deal with the intensity and color. It starts out at a D65 Illuminant, a reference white light bulb. What I'll do is switch over. Depending on the lighting that's in the space, I may want fluorescent, warm or cool, for example. I'll try first a fluorescent warm white and see how it looks. The intensity here right now is in candles, 1500. We can also deal in lumens, or lumens at a certain distance, especially if you're doing lighting analysis. I'll try a render and see what the color looks like first, and then adjust the intensity. Remember that because this adjusted all those lights in the chandeliers, they all changed. and my scene is a little on the yellow side. Something tells me the warm white is not the right way to go, so I'll try something else. Let's try instead a white fluorescent and hit render again. One of the big things with lighting is to test, and then retest, and test it again, but test it at a small size. It's looking better. There's a definite warm tone and mood going on that matches the reference imagery I showed in earlier videos. I like where it's heading, although it's still a little yellow. I'll try one more template here in the intensity. Let's try a cool white fluorescent and see what it looks like. That's better. It's not quite as orange, and some of the colors could use a little work to be less green, but the values are looking pretty good in the train station. Now I'll play with the intensity a bit. I'll hit escape, and I'll try boosting up the intensity of this light. I'll try 1800 candles. This should give me more light in the scene. I'll click render and see what I get. It's better. I'm getting a nice brightness. And this leads us to one of the things that is puzzling when you're starting out in 3D. Right now we're seeing lights that I have put in and have told to act realistically. But I've changed around how my camera sees it, and I'm changing around how much light these put out. So even though they're behaving correctly, I've made them what I want to look right. It's okay to do this. If it looks right, it's right. If somebody asks you for a simulation that says, give me exactly the light in exactly that space, you can do that. But for us, we're in more of a theatrical mode. We want it to look right and have the mood we want. If we'd like to choose a light, for example, we can scroll up, and there are our templates. And each of these templates come with both color, intensity, and values, and the way the light spreads. For example, choosing, let's say, stadium lights or street lights will give us the spread of an orange street light and the way it falls off in the scene. I'm going to leave it alone and use the lights I've selected because I like the way it's looking. I may give these a little more pop, but first I'll try to get the sun in. I'll press H for hit and select from scene. I'll filter down by choosing Display None and then turning on Lights, and there's my Free Direct 1. I'll select it and turn on some shadows and turn on some light. I'll turn on shadows, choose Ray Trace Shadows, and under Intensity, Color, and Attenuation, there's a multiplier, that's the brightness, and a color swatch next to it. Because it's the sun, I'll click on that color swatch and just bring back the blue a little bit. Just a little warmth in there. Then I'll bring up that multiplier, as we couldn't even see the sun originally. I'll try 12 and see how this looks. As you can see with lights, there is some testing involved. Also, once we start dealing with photometric lights, our standard lights seem very dim until we crank them way up. It's working nicely, and I'm really starting to see the light come into the space, although it is a little yellow and I could adjust the materials. But first, I'll try to get this sun in. I'll try this multiplier a little higher, maybe 300. I'll try one more render and see if I get some light coming in there. Much better. I can see already in the final gather that I've got light streaming through those big windows and across the seats and on the floor, giving me dramatic sunbeams in the space. When you're lighting, think about the value of the light and the color and where it goes and how to get the most impact out of it. Put your lights in so that there's great play between light and shadow, and surfaces constantly change in color and value. I've got further work to do in adjusting, but right now this is looking really nice. My light is streaming into that space. Those sunbeams are reaching across the floor and the chandeliers cast a warm glow in the train station.